Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Greenius. It's your host Bella, back with part 2 of my conversation with the amazing Maryam Denton-Cardew. If you heard episode 1, you already know that Miss DC is basically a sustainability wizard disguised as an educator. In this episode, we're going bigger, bolder, and maybe a little crazier. In a fun way, I promise. Today, we're talking about green schools. What makes them work? And how do we design schools that don't just teach sustainability, but actually live it every single day? And yes, I'm also putting Miss DC through one of my favorite traditions, the Greenius Rapid Fire. Quick questions, fast answers, and no time to overthink. It's going to be awesome. So let's jump into part 2, all about bold ideas, bright futures, and schools that help the planet breathe a little easier.
Let's go back to what you said about school transformation. Now, as the Director of Education at Heather Harris Education, you're not just helping influence one school, you're connecting loads of school leaders with sustainability experts and helping them turn intent into impact. What does that actually look like behind the scenes? Can you describe a moment where you saw leadership mindset genuinely shift from when someone went from, we should care about this, to, we are going to build this into everything we do?
Well, the honest truth is, Bella, right now it's going too slow for my liking. I like to do things as quick as possible.
Yeah.
Typically people, the kind of pain point that we have right now is typically people who work in schools are very time poor. So it really is a huge obstacle to kind of being able to push forward this initiative much quicker. And it's a real shame because, we're missing a lot of opportunities to grow the bigger picture much faster across the education scene. So look, watch this space. Let's come back to that in a podcast in season 2.
As a student, I sometimes feel like we're invited to join sustainability projects, little ones here and there, but the big decisions are still made somewhere far, far away in an office or a boardroom. In your dream version of a school, what would it look like for students to be the true co-designers of sustainability in policies, spaces, food, uniforms, and transport, and not just the people who show up for a photo in the end?
No, I hear you. And wow, a dream version of a school. Again, how long do we have in the podcast? Look, I think one big thing that I think all schools really need is R&D, so research and development. So,
of course,
in my dream school, I'd have age-appropriate R&D areas throughout the schools where students can just build, test, iterate, innovate, fail, and then go again. And it would have living walls both on the inside and the outside. You wouldn't even hear the city cars for the bird song. Kids would just love coming to school because it was a natural and beautiful place. We have this thing where we go away to 5-star hotels because we want that mental break. And one of the things that 5-star hotels do really good is they put money into landscaping and layout, right? So again, that's nature and that's planning. And schools are really missing an opportunity here because when you create a beautiful space, people want to be there. And as soon as you have people who are, happily going into that space, that whole mindset shift means that they will actually be better learners as well. On top of that, what other things would I love to have? I would basically love to have like almost a revolving door of TED Talks where students had experts that they could just drop into, have a Q&A, because the amazing thing about students is, they're constantly, like, ideas are just firing through their minds, and they want someone to bounce those ideas off and ask the questions. So to be able to just kind of have those experts on hand, or, maybe they could look at a timetable and say, the person I really need to speak to is going to be here in 2 months, so that kind of thing. I'd also have the students, and I saw this in Japan, where the students are very hands-on in both the food prep of the cafeteria and the cleaning of the school.
Yeah.
And I think that is hugely important, and I think that many more schools around the world should do that, because what that does is it gives students a sense of stewardship of a physical place.
Of course.
And then once they have that, again, it's what are your habits from your childhood? What responsibilities were the norm in your childhood? So having that sense of stewardship of a physical place, they could then carry out into the big wide world of being adults.
Yes.
And that's where they will actually have influence to make the world a better place.
Mm-hmm. And to them, it doesn't feel like a chore at all, because
exactly.
it's almost like an honor for them. They're like, well, I get to do this,
Exactly.
Which I find really inspirational, and whoever managed to get them to think that way, kudos to you, girl.
But you know what, Bella? When you are... So children are amazingly adaptable, right?
Yes.
And when you give them a normal, right? So you say, this is normal. This is not something that's different. They won't question that.
Of course, yeah.
So if they're growing up in a normal of, you need to clean your school, you need to prepare the food, and then, of course, there's, if there's any food waste issues, they'll see it themselves. So growing up in that normal is really the adults that we want, when they leave school.
And sustainability can also really be sort of embedded in that normal. And I think that's kind of the way.
Absolutely. It'll be innate. It would be innate in that.
Yeah. Where like all the kids who are growing up now, they grow up. And I'm really lucky at JAS because the curriculum, we have a part of the curriculum called STEAM, and it's very sustainability focused.
Yeah.
And like all the little kids from FS, and they're 4 years old, but they already know about what's happening.
Which is absolutely as it should be. That is fantastic. Yeah. Absolutely fantastic.
And then to them, it doesn't become scary. It becomes almost like a fact of life, and a fact of life. Yeah,
exactly. It's not. Yeah. Sorry, I keep interrupting you. But
no, of course. It's okay. That's inevitable. Yeah. Now back to you. In one of your bios, it says that you'd like to see the world where altruism is more visible than consumerism, where green spaces are the norm, and where clean air is an enforced human right. That's such a powerful sentence.
Thank you.
When you're working with schools and communities, how do you help children and adults notice when consumerism is quietly driving their choices? And how do you gently shift them towards a more altruistic, planet-friendly decision?
Well, Bella, as you kind of alluded to previously, I love talking, right? So I love talking. I love finding out people's stories. I love sharing coffee and homemade granola. and finding a way to connect. So through that kind of love of chat, I also love telling stories. And the thing about sustainability is it's really at its heart, it's a public health issue. And it's not just about doing the right thing, right? It's a public health issue. And as soon as you start talking about health and well-being, people start to pay attention.
Fair.
Then you gradually start sharing, right? So I could tell them, I could tell them about the program for teenagers in Connecticut in the States, where they trained teenagers in beekeeping. So they trained them to be beekeepers. Sorry.
Yeah.
And through that journey, the teenagers said that they felt this enormous weight lift off them because that program of connecting with the bees and developing a skill helped them deal with their previous feelings of like anxiety, trauma, and isolation. Similarly, another program which is actually marine biology based, and again, this is another story from the US. It was about US military vets. So they used to be Navy SEALs, and then they retired. So they had these incredible skills, but suddenly they didn't have a purpose. And they probably also were carrying trauma with them. So the local community, and I actually forget where this was based, but they developed a program that actually allowed those military vets to volunteer to help restore coral reefs.
Oh, wow.
So they were using the skill that they learned from the military to then actually do something which is better for the planet. Another story is the case of Nauru. So Nauru is this tiny island nation, and it went through this massive boom of phosphate mining. And during that boom time, money was flooding into the country, right? But it's a tiny island. So once the resource was exhausted, people suddenly, at the end of it, when the resource was gone, there was no more left. People had loads of money in their pockets. They had Ferraris in the driveway, but they actually had no viable land to grow food on. So here we go. Fast forward a number of years later, Nauru is effectively a disaster zone with a population in crisis, but there are rusting Ferraris and Lamborghinis dotted around the place. So there we go. It's a little microcosm in what would happen in our planet if we don't pay attention.
Yeah.
Another one which I love is so microbiology is a field of science which is getting more attention, as it should.
Yes.
Because there's more microorganisms on the planet than multicellular organisms by a long way. So we've got, they recently have found bacteria that are just snacking away on plastic in water. So maybe there's hope to clean our oceans. And then coming back to the way, showing that sustainability really is a public health issue. Another great story that I read was, it was a study done by the NHS, which is the National Health Service in the UK.
Yes.
And they wanted, so they're trying to see, okay, how can we help patients recover better? Right. Again, data helps everything. Okay. So they said, right, let's go out, let's get some data. So they actually collected data on patients that were recovering faster compared to patients who had the exact same other variables, but were recovering slower. And they were trying to see, right, okay, what is the difference here? They had the same surgeon, same age, gender, roughly quality of life beforehand. So what is different? And they realized that the patients who were in the hospital rooms that had a view of trees and greenery healed faster than patients who just had a view of concrete.
That's amazing.
Exactly. And this is the great thing about sustainability, is there are so many wow moments, right?
Yeah.
Another great one which I love is the country Bhutan, which I yeah, you've been to Bhutan, and it's a country that measures its success not by gross national product, gross domestic product, GDP. They measure it by gross national happiness.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
Why isn't everyone doing that?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of ways to wake people up to how we can do things better.
Yeah, these are seemingly meaningful things that are okay, let me just put you in this room and you in this room. But it's what you're actually looking at that's really making a difference, which is really cool. Even when you're driving to school, I think a lot of people in cities now see big shops and stores and malls and traffic. But just imagine if we use that same logic and started putting trees around the roads. That could possibly do something.
Absolutely. No, it'd be beautiful.
Yeah, and I used to see a lot of stuff like that in different schools. Citizens, Arbor, and now many more through Heather Harry's, trying different approaches to sustainability in their learning. Could you share one or two concrete examples of schools doing something really clever or really beautiful in this space? Something that made you think, go on.
Sorry.
Yeah, something that made you think, yes, this is what a greener generation being grown on purpose looks like.
Yeah, no, wonderful. No, and I'm glad you mentioned the Arbor School there, Bella, because Arbor School is kind of the lighthouse example. They've got their biodomes, they've got a diverse range of resident plants and animals on site. They've got spaces they've given to greenhouses. They've got an apiary, so it's doing a lot of things right. They're still waiting to do my key thing, which maybe we'll talk about later. But a school which which I also was really thrilled to read about, was GEMS, our own Indian school in Dubai. And what they did is they turned about like just 50 square meters into a full-scale urban farm, which produced 100,000 kilos of fruits and vegetables annually, which is just phenomenal. And their system uses a combination of hydroponics, aeroponics. They even are recycling water from their air conditioners into the irrigation. So that was a really, really wonderful thing to see. And you know, kind of because it was within the GEMS network. GEMS are quite good at getting their leaders to talk and share good practice. It was lovely to see that as well.
Wow, that's brilliant. I'm so glad about that. Now, sometimes when people think about green schools, like you said about Arbor, they picture something very expensive or very exclusive. Lots of glass, big solar panels, and a giant vertical garden in the lobby itself. From your perspective, how do we make sure sustainability in schools is not just a premium add-on, but something that supports equity and inclusion, so that every child in every context has access to healthy environments and climate education?
So if we're talking about the UAE specifically, it seems that, again, because the vast majority of schools in the UAE are, you know, they're profit making, which is, that's fine, that's absolutely fine.
Yes.
But then what are they then driven by, right? And they are driven by making sure that they have students who are learning well, that the school has a good reputation, and that their students and teachers stay with them. So how can we get sustainability into that? Well, I think it has to start with, if it doesn't already start with it being the ethos of the school owners and the board of governors and the CEO, you know, that's how Arbor started, and that's great. But in other schools where that's lacking, I think we may get to a point that it has to come through legislation. So if their schools are not being held to account, if they're not being told you have to do this as a minimum, I think that they will be too slow to change. Because if the captain of the ship doesn't have climate change on their radar, then the rest of the crew, they're not going to stand a chance.
Yeah, fair. It's like they're really comfortable in the kind of ecosystem they have. No pun intended there. They're really comfortable with what's happening. They're like, okay, school's happening fine. We're making our money. Everyone's happy. Kids are coming, you know. But they don't think about making that change, and they might, but they're just like, everything's working out fine. Why bother? So, you know, if we, you know, get on that path. Now, speaking of schools that are coming up now, because there are loads of schools that are being built all across the world. What's one thing that we could build into the very school that makes an impact?
So, you know, this is kind of what I was alluding to earlier. One thing that I would wish every single school had was just plant trees all around the sports fields.
I was waiting for this one.
Sorry?
I was waiting for this one.
Maybe I bang on about this. No, I think it's an easy one, right? It's an easy one. We're talking about what are some easy things, right? And another easy one. So with the trees around the sports pitches, you get instant natural shading and cooling. You get instant homes for animals that will change the ecosystem around there. I remember one school that I worked at, I had the privilege of working at, did actually have this.
Yes.
And you won't believe it, Bella, but I was walking near the pitch and these gorgeous little family of hedgehogs were there, like burrowing down between the trees, which just filled me with so much joy. You know. So that's an easy one. Another really easy one is having filtered water stations all over the place, because I know one of your pet peeves, and I fully agree with this, is that schools still sell water in plastic bottles. I cannot believe that we are such an advanced race of humans and we are still selling water in plastic bottles. What is that?
Yeah, and it gets on my nerves. And also, A lot of schools might think, okay, we're going to plastic cups, but we're going to paper cups instead of plastic. Your paper cups have plastic lining on them. They literally have the synthetic gel so that they can hold water. Like, oh my God, they don't need that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I 1000% agree with you. Yeah.
And going back to your soccer pitch idea, something that you said the other day was that if a student is to kick a ball into the tree, they might see a really cool bird, and then everybody goes around it. Yeah.
Exactly.
And then that's adding to the nature connection as well. So it's kind of like, it's like 1,000 birds, one stone. And we're not going to hit any stones of birds, by the way. That was just a metaphor. Yeah. Now, staying in the realm of schools, but moving more to teachers and their mindsets. If you could press download and instantly upload one insight into the minds of every teacher in the world about sustainability, what would it be? What's the thing you wish every classroom teacher understood about their power growing a greener generation?
Do you know what? That's so easy, Bella, right?
Yeah.
If I had one instant download into every single, and I wouldn't just do this for teachers, I do this for every person, is I would download a full scientific encyclopedia of knowledge into their brains. Why? Because then they would instantly see how everything is connected. They would instantly see that butterfly effect I was talking about before. You know, this concept of systems thinking, which is, you know, the latest buzzword, right? That would be systems thinking for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That is what I would download into their minds.
Oh, wonderful. A lot of listeners on this podcast are young people like me, who care about the planet but aren't always sure where to start in their schools. If a student came up to you and said, I'm 11 or 13 or 15, I care about climate and I want my school to do better, what should I do first? What would your honest, raw advice be?
Well, the first thing I would tell them, because what I notice in young people is that they have a lot of anxiety about climate change, and I understand that. So the first thing I would say to them is, don't worry. We have all the knowledge that we need to fix this problem that we've created. So the first thing you need to do is park your worries, because your worries are only going to stop you. And then the second thing you need to do is get people together, right? The more people that you can get on the bandwagon of, right, if we have the knowledge, what is it in our local kind of sphere and how can we implement it? Well, the more people that you get on your side, the quicker those changes will happen. So let's get together and do this.
Yeah, it's kind of like power in numbers.
Exactly.
Yeah. I did ask you this on the panel, but I want to ask it again just for this podcast. If we time travel to the year 2050 and somehow you and I are recording together here again, looking back at everything school decided to do and not do, what is something you hope we're celebrating about the way we treated the planet and educated my generation and the future generations to come?
Do you know what, Bella? If you and I were sat together in 2050 doing another podcast, I would hope that sustainability and protecting the planet would be so utterly solved that your whole podcast would have to be on a completely different topic.
Yeah. My favorite thing to say is that I hope that we're all looking for jobs and that the world has evolved so far to a point that we don't need people like you and I anymore. We don't need to be thinking, we don't need to be advertising sustainability and coming up with solutions and giving people answers, because it's just so embedded into life.
Exactly.
And to wrap up, I'd love you to speak directly to the greener generation, all the children and teenagers and everyone else who might be listening to this and wondering if their voice actually does matter. If you could send one message straight to their hearts about their role in this climate story, what would you want them to know and remember?
So, well, there's no silver bullet. Okay, there's not one single thing that will fix and change this. But we do know that fossil fuels have to go.
Yeah.
And the fact that there were far more fossil fuel lobbyists and industrial agriculture lobbyists than indigenous delegates, at COP30, which just happened this past month in Brazil, the fact that we are still in a situation where basically the bad guys outnumber the good guys in the negotiating space, well, this is a problem.
Yeah.
So what I would say to the greener generation is the power is still very much in the wrong hands. So the first thing you need to do is you need to go forth and dismantle and disrupt, because the status quo simply has to go.
Yeah, this is like a spy operation. Rebel, guys! Don't actually do anything crazy. To all the people listening,
please. You can lead the revolution, Bella.
Well, Miss DC, thank you. It's been absolutely fabulous having you on today.
Thank you so much for having me, Bella.
Miss DC, thank you for the most magical round 2, and for proving that green schools aren't just a trend or a dream, they're totally possible. You showed us that sustainability can be smart, creative, messy, joyful, and sometimes powered by truly chaotic student energy, which is honestly the best kind. To everyone listening, remember, schools don't change because of buildings. They change because of people. Students who speak up, teachers who believe in them, and leaders who are brave enough to try new things. If you learned even one thing that made your brain light up like a solar panel, go share it. That's how greener generations grow. This is Bella from the Greenius, signing off with a big smile, a hopeful heart, and maybe one too many reusable water bottles. See you in the next episode, and stay brilliantly green. Catch you on the green side.